Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button and keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks, here we are after market close on Monday, October 2nd. We're going to take a look at Mara today. So I want to do a few things. First, we're going to put in some levels on the chart, support and resistance levels. Good news is we have a ton of previous price action right through where we are currently. And once we get those settled, because Thinkorswim is broken at the moment, I assume due to them moving over to Schwab, so that might be kind of dead and gone. So I'm trying to transition things over here to my Webull platform. It's not going to be the long-term solution, but for today it's what we have. So because of that, we'll take a look at the TTM squeeze indicator, the EMAs, the channel, and call it a video. All right, so a couple of things stand out right off the bat here. One, I think that there's a trend line here. Let's see what happens when we try to put one in. That would go right around here. Downtrend resistance that has been pushing off. Yeah, so I'm happy with that. So as I always say, which sounds like an obvious thing to say, but give me a moment to explain it. The most important thing for Mara in order to course correct or reverse trend will be to break this downtrend resistance. And the reason for that is not just because the price will have to rise in order for that to happen, but it'll be because it won't just rise and then still get stuck under this. And what I mean, look at this day here, up over 28%. But still, what happened? It was so far away from the downtrend resistance at this point. All that 28% did was it bumped its head right against the resistance, and it then shot back down from 13 all the way down to below 8. So that's why I say the most important thing is going to be for this to get over or even just sidestep its way through the downtrend resistance and then get some distance from it. That's the most critical thing at the moment for Mara, in my opinion. Now, I know folks are going to come in and say, it's just whatever Bitcoin's doing, Mara's going to do. And I always say, keep in mind, Mara is a company. It has efficiencies, it has inefficiencies, it has earnings, it has EPS, it has all of these things. And so to just ignore that and say that it's just going to go up however much Bitcoin goes up and go down, however much Bitcoin goes down, I think is probably not really the case, at least in the long run, because it's going to have operating expenditures. It's going to have hires and fires and costs of goods and all of this sort of thing. So I would just keep that in mind. And yes, there are still cost of goods for software programs. Okay, so we got a bunch of levels in here. I don't know that we need to go too far down, but I would like to get some levels in below 763 at least. What else do we have back here? Ooh, what's this level? Yeah, it's still in the 5s. 612. I don't want to quite go down that low yet because it's just going to sort of clutter up the chart at the moment. Okay, so this is not the cleanest level. That's not bad though. Let me go down. Let me see if we pin it here, what that kind of looks like. Okay, I'm happy with that level. 672, 763. There's certainly tighter in levels as well. And if we get in those ranges, we can fill them in some more, but right now we aren't below, the $8 range at the moment. So I'm not going to worry too much about cluttering the chart in that range at the moment. This is a good level, 834. And then as you see, we have this 887. Above that, would put a level in here, 949. So we have kind of a big stretch here. 887 to 949, at least percentage-wise. I know it's just a few pennies, but and knowing that Mara can move and groove, I'll put one here at 1094. Okay, so we have charted all the way down to 672, all the way up to 1232. I'm going to leave those for the time being. Let me see if I want to throw in one more. Just in case there's a big sell-off, I'll throw in one down here around 564-ish. Let me double check that level. Okay, yeah. We'll keep that there for now. Now, so we have this downtrend resistance. We have all these levels. And so if we zoom in today, and we had these levels on the chart, for one, you had this gap up on the 10-minute, right? And what ended up happening is as the day progressed, it filled that gap. So that was sort of a textbook play. It doesn't always happen, but you see something coming into the gap like you saw here. And then if you have these levels on the chart, you see it wrestling with this 887 level, which is in the gap, right? It didn't get filled by this wick even during the pre-market, so it's in the gap and it's wrestling with it. And it loses ground and then confirms resistance right here. And what does that tell you? Well, it's probably going to get sucked down into the gap. And so that's exactly what happened. And interestingly enough, that's right where it settled, right at the gap fill point. So to the extent to which it was rip the band-aid off and fill that gap and then try to move on, maybe that's a little something that could be taken from that. But, as we sort of like get through the after hours and head in tomorrow and that sort of thing, what I'm going to be looking for is, can it continue to build support over that level? What I wouldn't want to see for the bulls would be for it to come down and need to test 834, because that's going to stretch below the lows of Friday, which is not what you want to have happening day to day if you're a bull, obviously. It can happen and sometimes it can be okay, but it wouldn't be my ideal sort of motion, especially given the overall chart here on the daily of this, intense downtrend that it's been caught under. So that's going to be my first thing tomorrow. I don't want it to need to stretch down to 834 to try to find support there. I want it to move from here, retest 887. If I'm a bull, that's what I want. Retest 887, see what happens. Ideally, it can do the inverse of what happened here, flip it from resistance to support, and then march up and try, potentially try 949 again. I mean, it had stretched to 969 today, so it has price action, it has ability to have motion over that level if it gets movement in the right direction. So that's what I'd be looking for tomorrow. If it slips to 834 and if it loses support there, then I would start to be concerned that $8 is potentially at risk at that moment. Probably a level here on 819 or so if it needed it. But that would be sort of what I would be eyeing headed into tomorrow. Now, as promised, we're going to take a look at TTM squeeze indicators. Let's start there, and then we'll look at the EMAs and the channel. TTM squeeze indicator back here. Nice call out by the TTM squeeze indicator, actually. So we had this period of just basing, right? It was basing here, more or less at the 887 level, and TTM squeeze indicator started triggering, sorry. This red section here started triggering, and then when it fired, it called out this move from about, it would have been from about, high nines all the way up to that 19 level. So really good call out there. Since then, equally as impactful of a retracement, because it's retraced back through those levels again. And for the time being, nothing additionally triggering or firing at the moment. We're going through our second wave of bearish momentum now. It's appearing as though, at least currently, that it's trying to die down again, right? The last three candles, putting it on the daily here, diminishing bearish momentum. If I'm a bull, it's also what I want to see, whereby the area of the histogram in the previous bearish momentum, where we didn't even get back to the baseline on the histogram until we started putting more bearish momentum, growing bearish momentum again, but it didn't come down quite as far, right? You can see here the gray line, minus 2.69, and this stretch down here, down to minus 3.76. So it didn't need to stretch down as far. There wasn't the momentum there to bring it down. So my hope there, if I'm a bull, is that this is an overall sign of diminishing bearish momentum on the stock. We'll see if it can continue to draw down there, especially knowing that now, if it does continue to move up, it's going to be wrestling and running into that downward resistance, that trend line, incredibly soon. Like with every push upward, it's going to be right up against it. So that's what I'm most interested in at the moment. Now, let me hide these so that everything is viewable, and come over here and take a look at our EMAs. So our EMAs at the moment, here's the other critical thing. It's been stuck under the 8 EMA, which is very sort of like textbook downtrend resistance on the daily. Today it's pushing through and it wicked right off of the 21 EMA. So again, another sort of textbook move. It's moving in all the right places where you'd want it to. Like here, it wicked off of the 34, right? That was an attempted much larger push. You had this, like we said, this day that was up over 28%, and then they followed that with a hammer, but still, okay, still that pressure of the 34 EMA just could not be overcome, and so it shrugged it off. So I'm also going to be looking this 8 EMA. What is it doing here? Is it able to gain support over that 8 EMA? That's going to be critical to start to get some motion upward like we saw here, but this would be a little bit more of a smooth motion. And then if we can get the 8 crossing over the 21, it's a bullish sign. The 8 crossing over 34, another bullish movement, and then the 21 getting dragged over the 34 as well would be a final sort of bullish motion, and at that point the price, I would anticipate, would be breaking through that downtrend resistance. So interesting point at which it is on the EMAs as well. Lastly, Keltner channel. In recent days, it slipped out the bottom of the channel, and we see it struggles here with the mid-range of the channel, this bright blue line. And today, that's exactly where it shrugged off again. So another sort of textbook motion. It does exactly what we'd want it to do. It fell at the bottom of the channel, and what we always look for is when is it going to draw back into the channel and retest the mid-range, which is that blue line. And it did that today. It started to nice sort of double bottom here a few days ago, got into the channel on Friday, and then today continued in the channel, attempted the mid-range of the channel, and shrugged it off as resistance. Now, critical point here. What's it going to do with the mid-range of that channel? Is it going to be able to get any support over it? If not, it's likely to just continue to get stuck like we saw over here, right? It wrestled with that mid-range here, and it just lost it. And then it tried to sidestep its way back to it, and it couldn't even quite reach the mid-range again, and it got pushed off really hard. And so that's what I would be sort of concerned about if I was a bull and it put in a motion similar to that. What I would want to see is something more like, it's a bad example. Okay, this is a slightly better example, but you know, it was in a drawdown period here, and it retested the mid-range and it quickly found support, right? This initial sort of wrestling with it, and it pushed toward the upper bound of the channel, came back, reconfirmed support, and then a nice push up out of the channel. And then this lengthy period of wrestling with the mid-range, and then again, a nice push up through the channel, and then it drew back down again. So you see all these periods where it leaves the channel, and then we look for it to retrace to the mid-range of the channel. You don't know when it's going to happen, right? This is several days of being outside the channel, but when it draws back in and it starts to make motion toward the mid-range, that could be an indication of, hey, here comes the test of the mid-range of the channel and what's going to happen there. That's always a critical moment. And here it lost support, confirmed resistance right here. And then what do you get? A really quick push down to the bottom of the channel, and not only that, but out through the bottom of the channel. And then here was the retest that we were just looking at, and then a push through, and then that brings us to today, where it had pushed through the bottom of the channel, and we looked for the retracement to the mid-range. We got it. That was today. It shrugged off of it, but that may not be the end of the story. I'm most interested to see the next 2, 3, 4 candles, what those look like. What is it doing with the mid-range of that channel? If it's continuing to make contact with it, or if it shrugs off of it one direction or the other. All right, folks, I hope that your trading week got off to a good start today. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.